Well, hi there, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of the Gary Neville Podcast, focusing just on one game, the game that started the weekend, the game that will have divided Manchester, divided opinions maybe around the world. Manchester United 0, Manchester City 2. Discuss.
Yeah, and divided obviously Manchester, but I think at the end of the game there'll be a consensus that where Manchester City are and where Manchester United currently are, and it's not where everyone expected Manchester United to be at the start of the season. Finishing last season in second was seen as real progression. Third the year before, second last year. This was the year, particularly with the introduction of Varane and Sancho and Ronaldo, that Manchester United were going to get closer, but they could find themselves 11 points off the top of the league in about 3 hours' time. And I have to say that it's difficult to summarise that game other than to say that against Liverpool it was smash bang wallop, and I just described that at the end there like almost like a general anaesthetic, like you've just been put to sleep. Manchester City have just put Manchester United to sleep there. They have. They've just 10 minutes of huff and puff at the start of the second half with the change of system, but then for the last half an hour City have toyed with United and made them look really ordinary, and it was demoralising. I'm a United fan, and you marvel at the exceptional quality of Manchester City, the discipline. I think discipline's the big thing. You mentioned that word and I mentioned it, of the discipline of Foden to stay in his position, of Jesus. There's a methodology to it that's clinical and ruthless, and it was a brutal second half that from City.
Even though they didn't score.
Yeah, I hear sometimes boxers, and I always wonder whether they actually mean it when they say it, that I wanted to toy with them so much that I wanted to keep them believing they had a chance, because I wanted to get them 12 rounds of real pain. That's what that was. You hear sometimes Tyson Fury say, I don't want to knock him out. I wanted to really toy with him I wanted to feel the pain of 36 full minutes, 12 3-minute rounds. Manchester City could have gone 3, could have gone 4, could have gone 5, but they've decided that no, we're going to sort of keep you in there for 12 rounds and make you suffer. And that's how it felt watching that last half an hour, that it was a team that were in complete control, knew what they were doing, never stopped doing the right things on the ball, and defensively they were just... It's a brilliant team, and at Manchester United, it's a sobering day. I describe Manchester United in the second half almost like a drunk bloke trying to win a fight at the end of the night, just almost like that, trying to swing their arms, but not even that really. They weren't even throwing that many punches.
But you weren't happy with the system that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer started the game with?
I was concerned, and I think I welcome the 5 at the back. I was concerned before the game. I did a piece on, and I just know this pitch. We used to love playing against 5-3-2. We used to love it because you pinned down the opposition wing backs, as Jesus and Foden did, and then Cancelo and Walker. And in my day, it was me and someone else on the left back side, could be Dennis Irwin or Patrice Evra. We just run the game, and that's what happened. You had an easy out ball, Scholes switching the play, one side to the other, and you just demoralised in killing teams with a really simple tactic. And it's hard for the three in midfield. I felt for the three in midfield, Fred, McTominay and Fernandes, because what could they do? They couldn't do anything. They couldn't get near to anybody. And not necessarily that I was worried about the system, but I'd seen Chelsea play that system against City at Stamford Bridge and not lay a glove on City for 60 minutes until they went to basically the 3-4-3. And I wondered whether Manchester United could just maybe split the strikers, whoever it would be today, and put Bruno up one, and then they'd have the 3 up, which would mean you stop the sort of easy switch of play. But they kept to the 5-3-2, and my worst fears were confirmed as the game developed when Cancelo just kept getting out on this side, and he put the crosses in for both goals. So not necessarily unhappy with the system, more the way in which it was deployed and the sort of lack of adaptation just to cope with what is an exceptional team. Because you've got to somehow try and get near to people, and United couldn't get near to anybody today in that game.
Well, let's look at the two teams independently. We'll come back to United, but Manchester City, who had to make a change. It was hardly a change of any great consequence. John Stones back for the suspended Laporte. They'd played on Wednesday, albeit at home, so they hadn't had to travel. And they shuffled it around. Bernardo Silva, who'd been put like 8 or 9 games together in midfield, suddenly was deployed as the main striker. But it was just a smooth, oiled machine, wasn't it, right from the beginning?
It was, and Manchester United found themselves with 3 centre-backs marking no one. So you end up in a situation where somewhere you've got a massive overloads, which is what City had. And I thought that Manchester United's defenders weren't brave in the first half in possession. I thought they were hesitant in their defending. They made really poor errors. And Manchester City didn't create loads of chances here today. They created 3 or 4 really good ones that they should have taken. But the actual goals have come from individual errors and hesitancy. But City were what City are. You know, saw them go to Anfield, we saw them go to Stamford Bridge. They ain't going to come here and panic on a big pitch that's like a carpet. They're going to come here and sort of, you know, almost in some ways rub their stomachs, imagining what they're about to eat. It's delicious. And I just think that Manchester City did what they do, and Manchester United really didn't have any answers for it. It was the lack of answers from Manchester United today that were the most disturbing thing. What Manchester City gave us and what they delivered, I expected. I expect tempo, good passing, good movement, discipline in possession, discipline out of possession. You have to work hard to get a chance against them. The sustained attacks. I expected those things, and we got them because they're a consistent, well-oiled, as you say, fantastic team that have got a lot of experience and maturity.
One thing this season, they've been short of goals, though, haven't they? And they hadn't scored in the Carabao Cup exit, which has been their trophy for 4 years, at West Ham. And they didn't score at home to Crystal Palace. And other games they failed to score in this season as well. They're down on numbers in that respect. So in a sense, did Manchester United solve that problem for them?
Manchester City have not scored in 6 out of the 17 games, which is a third of the matches. And Pep Guardiola's sick, as you could see yesterday in his press conference, about being asked about it. But it will keep coming back in future weeks if they do go against Crystal Palace and other games where they don't score. Paris Saint-Germain away was the classic example where I thought they played brilliantly, beautifully in fact, but didn't have anyone to put the ball in the back of the net. They will always go and beat teams just because they've got exceptional players. But the goals today, I thought, both preventable from Manchester United's point of view. They really were. They were poor individual errors. But I think from City's point of view, the only question mark you can have over this Manchester City team is that ruthless and clinical element in terms of attack. They're a brilliant team, but have they got someone that's going to go and win those games where it's just not falling for those midfield players and those wide strikers that they have? That is the only doubt that Pep Guardiola can have. Can they get a striker in January? They'll be in contention in January, no doubt. It's only 4, 5, 6 weeks away. And I think that Pep Guardiola, can he somehow loan a striker, find someone who can come in and do 4 or 5 months for them, where in those games where it's tight, they go and get that sort of first goal, second goal, whatever it is that they need to win the game. But the job that Pep Guardiola's doing is an exceptional manager. City fans sing, we've got Pep Guardiola in better tune than I've just said it. And they're still there on the screen behind us, the City fans. They're being kept in. But they've toyed with Manchester United today. Pep Guardiola will come on and do his interview. He'll say how proud he is of his team. They have toyed with Manchester United in a Manchester derby, and that is not easy to do. But they do it time and time again here.
Well, before we leave City, I got you to talk about João Cancelo. You gave him your man of the match in our commentary. Tell us in the podcast, you worked with him in Valencia, so you know a lot about him. Share it.
I love him as a lad. I absolutely loved him when he was out there. There was a vulnerability to him when he was out there because he was so young. He's so hard on himself, João Cancelo. So in training, and I don't know if he's still the same now, but he used to be his biggest critic. So if he made a mistake, he'd sort of, throw his arms on the ground and start cursing himself. And I used to say to him, give yourself a break. I said, it's hard enough in football as it is without you being too tough. And you will give the ball away. You will stop, make mistakes. You will give goals away. And I had him as a very sort of young player at Valencia, but you could just see exceptional talent. Martin, I made calls back to England, and you can imagine to which club at the time. Saying, if you're ever going to take a player, that's a young player you take. Him and Andre Gomez, I felt, were exceptional talents that could definitely come and grace the Premier League. Andre's had bad injuries, which have stopped him. But then I think the education that João Cancelo had in Italy would have been a good one for him. I think Italy toughens you up from a defensive perspective as well, being at Juventus as well.
Which was after Valencia.
After Valencia. I think that really gives you that sort of... And then he's come to England, and when City paid 60 million for him, the only doubt I had was the fact that did City need to spend 60 million on a fullback again, because they already had players in those positions. Not any doubt whatsoever about what this player was. He's an athletic machine. He is a brilliant runner. He's a beautiful runner with the ball. He's a tough kid as well. He's strong, he's brave in his defending, he affects the game in defence and in attack, and I say he's delivering on what I thought he would in terms, you see players sometimes not realise their potential. He is realising his potential, I couldn't be happier for him as a person, because I know how tough it was in Valencia at the time that he was there when I was there. And he'd have had that was a tough school for him to have to come through. He was a signing at the time through the George Mendes stable. At the time, that was getting criticised a little bit at Valencia. He was signed for quite a bit of money as a teenager, so there's pressure on him to deliver. But wonderful player, absolutely wonderful player. And I have to say that he's playing left back, but he plays it equally as well as right back. He could play midfield. I played him sometimes wide right in Valencia. He could play wide right if you wanted him to, or wide left. He's that good going forward. So a brilliant football player, and City he makes this City team better, and that's a hard thing to do.
Well, fulfilling his potential, but Manchester United aren't, are they? So it's a bit like a broken record going back over this, but another game on, another home defeat on. How do you think the reaction will be to this defeat? It was pretty horrific after the 5 goals. Does sound a lot worse than 2, but actually we've been at both games,
yeah.
and they're both very much demoralising defeats for those on the wrong end of it.
That was demoralising, almost to the point where it gives you a headache. It gives you a bit of a headache, that, just watching that, because you can lose football matches, Martin, we know that, but I always feel that Manchester United have to lose football matches in a certain way, and they've lost 2 matches against Liverpool and City, I think, in poor ways. They've not left a glove on City today. They've not got close to them. I get it's tough. I played against Barcelona teams at times where I just thought, how difficult is it to play against this? Look, how do you get the ball back off them? But it just like today, it felt like they got into the shape and they felt like that was enough. And look, the club aren't going to do anything, Martin, here. I don't think the club are going to do anything. I think that, this feeling that they had to sack Ole Gunnar Solskjaer 10 days ago so they could get Conte, and Conte was never been appointed by the hierarchy at this football club.
They actually said it publicly, didn't they?
Yeah,
that his demands were not acceptable to the Old Trafford owners.
That was never, ever going to happen. So the idea that fans think that, they've missed out on Conte, the hierarchy here were never going to appoint Antonio Conte, as great a manager as he is. And I think that their plan has been all season to stick with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer to the end of the season. And that's where I'm at, even after today, that, it's tough going though now. It's tough going because you can't be, and Chelsea could drop points to Burnley. But if Chelsea were to beat Burnley and you're 11 points behind the leaders with 11 games gone, that can't happen with this squad. That can't happen. Ole has progressed the club in the last 2 or 3 years, 6th to 3rd to 2nd. Should have won the trophy against Villarreal, didn't win the trophy. I still hark back to that. It was a bad moment because when you lose trophies and you lose finals, it has a real impact on players. On the other side of that, if you win the trophy, the medal round your neck, you're used to winning, it removes that issue that you've got of not winning a trophy for a few years. You need that trophy under your belt. Going out of the Carabao Cup to West Ham, that's a problem. It's a big problem. You can't go out of the Carabao Cup. That's a trophy you can win. The Champions League and League, well, the league's gone almost now. The Champions League's a 1 in 100 chance because of the quality of the teams. Maybe less than that, but it's a high chance. The FA Cup and the Carabao Cup can't just be dismissed. And I just think going out the Carabao Cup was a really bad situation for the club to be in. And today I think the fans leave the stadium, I think, almost tired and drained of what they've just seen.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Where are we? Where are we as a club in our journey in terms of getting back?
Will the players be thinking that, Gary? Because I do believe you're totally right about the club wanting to keep Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who's a very decent man and has done a decent job, but decent isn't usually good enough for Manchester United. You've got to drive on beyond that. But will the players now be thinking, well, what are they going to do? What's the management doing? What are the coaches doing to help us? We've tweaked the system. We're still getting passed around here at Old Trafford.
I think the players, firstly, I think these players care. So I want to make that point. There are times a few years ago, and I sort of watch, leaving Old Trafford, where I thought, are they really with us? Are them lot really with us out there? Then those players, it's not through a lack of effort or willingness or want to be. I think those players out on that pitch today, I generally think they want to do well and they want to be at Manchester United, every single one of them. So there's no sort of feeling, but they look like they're suffering badly at this moment in time. They really did. I think Tottenham are in a desperate situation last Saturday, but they did show some spirit in the early parts of that game. We were there and you thought, what's the reaction going to be? And they did react. Even in midweek, they were suffering in the game, but they reacted and they got the point. Today, I think what the club will do is put that down to, well, it's Pep Guardiola, it's Manchester City. That could happen in any season against any other. They did that to Chelsea. 4 weeks ago. Liverpool struggled against them. So I think that's the way the club will treat this game. In terms of the players in the dressing room, yeah, I think that they're entitled to think that they should have had a better idea in that second half of how to lay a glove on City. And I said just after half-time, I thought it would either be 4 or it would be 2-2 almost, in terms of, it would go swing one. I never thought it would be 2-0. I thought that the way in which Manchester United went, but they didn't really press on to Manchester City. They didn't really try and punch outwards. They didn't really go for it. And the substitutions were such that they were positive, but to a point whereby, let's not get a third against us, let's not get a fourth.
Yeah, it was a move of a manager who said we can't lose 5-0 here.
Yeah,
we have to take 2-0.
Yeah,
I
think at half time, Ollie, it felt to me like 2-0 was probably, that was probably acceptable in some ways. Not acceptable. He never think it's acceptable. He's played here. He knows what the standards are.
It's less of a headline.
But less of a headline. 2-0 off Manchester City, and that's why I say it's almost like a calm annihilation, a general anaesthetic. Rather than sort of, it was just felt like that. It just being put to sleep slowly. And that's what City have done to United. I think the club will put it down to that. They'll say that that's what can happen. But let's regroup, international break, and let's come back. But I think they've got Watford away, Villarreal away, and then Chelsea away. That's a horrid week. That's a horrid week, that. So this is not going to get any easier in the short term. The social media noise is different than the noise in the stadium. There is, Nuno last week, they were singing, Nuno out, weren't they, the Spurs fans? You won't hear that here. And that's not just because it's Ollie. We didn't hear that with Jose. We didn't hear that with David Moyes. We didn't hear that with Louis van Gaal. I didn't hear it with Ron Atkinson 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whenever it was. So, the fans here don't do that. They're respectful of the situation. But this is a train off the track at the moment. It's a train off the track, because last season I think that people said second in the league is progression. It's now not. It's now not, and that has to reverse very quickly. And I don't know how that happens, because these against the big teams, they look desperately short, and they shouldn't be desperately short. And that's where the manager comes under enormous pressure, and that's where questions start getting asked. And on social media tonight and over the weekend, it will be hot. It will be hot. There is a very different Manchester United contingent on social media than there is in the stadium itself. The contingent on social media haven't got the sympathy or the empathy or the compassion that the fans in the stadium have. But the fans walked out here towards the end today. We didn't mention it, but at 5-0 against Liverpool, they were gone towards the end. But there were a lot gone towards the end of this 2-0 because they knew it wasn't right. And the club, they've not prepared for this. They've not prepared for a new manager. They didn't expect it. They thought everything was sort of plain sailing along. They've planned around a structure and a way of working in the last 2 or 3 years that they're not going to veer away from. And I think at this moment in time, they're going to have to put the helmets on if they're going to defend this, because the reality of it is it's nowhere near good enough. You can't defend it. 11 points off Chelsea with the run that they've had. They've only played a couple of decent sides. They've only played a couple. You played Tottenham and City. They've got Liverpool, sorry. They've only played a couple of the top sides in the last few weeks. They should have had plenty of points in the bank to be able to deal with that. They haven't, and they've got Chelsea to come at Stamford Bridge. They could be 14 points off the top of the league. That's nowhere near good enough. It's unacceptable with this squad.